Welcome to the Philantrepreneur Show, hosted by Dr. Victoria Boyd, designed to offer tips, strategies, and insight to empower nonprofits and entrepreneurs with sustainable win-win solutions. The Philantrepreneur Show is sponsored by the Philantrepreneur Foundation, building capacity through education and professional services.
Well, good morning and welcome to the Philantrepreneur Radio Show. This is Dr. Victoria Boyd, and I'm president and founder of the Philantrepreneur Foundation and editor of the Philantrepreneur Journal. And as usual, I am so thrilled to bring tips, strategies, and insight for the business and nonprofit sectors. And I'm really especially excited today because we have live all the way from New Zealand a special guest that I'll be getting to in just a moment. I'm so glad she's on the line. But in today's business and nonprofit world, leader capacity, their ability to adapt and to recognize and accept that change is a constant, evolutionary, and necessary for growth and success are essential elements that they must possess as personal traits. One of the top challenges identified by leading statistical and data gathering organizations, and which I have noted very often, is the lack or inability of leaders to change, their adaptability. So today our show will focus on leadership. We will welcome one of the world's leading leadership coaches, an author, and is at the forefront of sustainable human and organizational transformation. Her 20 years in the corporate world, together with lessons she has garnered through her amazing and unique life story, all inspire and help others achieve sustainable transformation for professional and personal success. And today we will be able to gain from her experience and those little gems that we often just need to start harvesting along the way. The Philantrepreneur Foundation is honored to welcome all the way from New Zealand our guest Sally Anderson, founder and director of Evolved Leadership. And we will be right back with this exciting show.
The Philantrepreneur Foundation. Build your capacity with our educational programs and professional services. Learn how to be a philantrepreneur. Maximize your social impact and maximize your revenue. Visit thephilantrepreneur.com or philantrepreneurfoundation.org to find services, resources, and training to launch, enhance, or improve your business or nonprofit strategy. While there, sign up to receive the Philantrepreneur Journal digital publication.
Okay, you just don't realize how happy I am today. I've really first met Sally back in 2011, and her simple words of encouragement, we were attending a session together. They were actually profound. But what meant the most to me and really moved me to action, because I was sort of in that stage where I didn't really know what I wanted to do. And it was a simple request to tell my story. She is thought of as a leader and inspires others to be the same. There are no excuses or obstacles that should impede reaching, seeking, or attaining your full potential. Sally Anderson's fascinating story, albeit tragic, on its inset is a story of survival, courage, and transformation, and was profiled in 2004 and again in 2015 as a documentary on New Zealand's 60 Minutes. The documentary was an extraordinary testimony of human survival and commitment to the highest level of human performance against all odds. Her determination to regain her life from the most dehumanizing experience imaginable, to dedicating her life to helping others has shaped her personal development and destiny to become one of the most preeminent speakers and transformational coaches we have seen. Her unbelievable, candid message, practical strategies, and fresh ideas will invite you to examine, reassess, and reframe your life events to realize the greatness that exists within you. I'm sort of excited. I'm trying to read what I wrote here, but I just want to get to talking to Sally. So welcome to the show, Sally. I've alluded to your story, and perhaps you would like to give our listeners a glimpse into your past and how you got to be to where you are today. So welcome to the show, Sally.
So first of all, Victoria, it's a profound privilege to be on the show today. Thank you very much for the opportunity. And it's been a while, so it's great to reconnect. I'm in the process at the moment of publishing my second book, The Co-Creative Age, The Next Evolutionary Phase in Leadership. And like yourself, when you're publishing a book, you get pretty grounded. When you're running 1,000 miles an hour anyway, and then trying to publish a book on top of that, you get pretty grounded in the journey that you've been on and what it's taken to get here. So as you alluded, I've done two 60-minute documentaries, which was a profound experience, profiling my life. The brand Evolved Leadership means evolving in your leadership capability. I had a great upbringing. My father was a guidance counselor in the schooling system. He really saw a need within the schooling system to cater for kids who weren't academically minded. He really was my first legacy leader. Legacy for me is a profound conversation. It's not about what you leave behind when you die. It's what is your DNA calling you to be in the world. And to me, it's one of the most profound conversations you can facilitate with a human being on the planet. What are you doing here? What is your unique magnificence that you're here to bring forth? So he really was this person who really inspired me, and I definitely am my father's daughter. He passed away in 2001. And he wanted to give his opportunity to inspire, and I was born in New Zealand, and then we moved to Canada for about 4 years, and then came back to New Zealand, and I learnt to ski on Whistler Mountain. Loved skiing, very passionate about it. Got my first job hiring out skis at a local ski resort. And in the early 80s, a lot of kids used to hitchhike, and a friend of mine and I hitchhiked into a local township. Just to fast-track the story, given the time that we have on the radio today. So we were a bit rebellious. We walked into the public bar, not realizing that we were being cased out by a notorious gang called the Mongrel Mob here in New Zealand. It was one of the worst reported gang rapes in the history of New Zealand in the early 80s. I was abducted from the public bar by 8 gang members, thrown into the back of a car, driven around to the local hangout, and thrown onto a butcher's block, and in the garage in front of women and children, and was gang raped by more than 100 Mongrel Mob members. I literally died on the block. I was conscious throughout the ordeal, and pretty much mentally split out to be able to cope with what was happening to me. They then threw me like a sheep carcass onto the back of a ute, 3 in the back, 2 in the front, and abducted me to another gang location about an hour and a half away. I was beaten black and blue, couldn't walk, couldn't talk. I was terrified to ask for help, and so the rapes continued until I lost consciousness. I was found, I was relocated back to where I came from, dropped off on the side of the road, and I was asked for petrol money. I didn't have any money on me at the time. And I went home, I scrubbed myself stupid. I got up the next day. Psychologically, I went to work and acted like it didn't happen. Oh, it must have been a sight. Obviously, I've been missing for 2 days. The police were called, and parents were called. What on earth do you say to your daughter? My parents didn't know how to deal with it, so go back to school, act like it didn't happen. That had me then live into 25 years of the most dysfunctional behaviour. I was a suicidal maniac. I lived into self-loathing, self-hatred, name and addiction on every level. And pretty much sentenced myself for a good 2 decades into creating enough carnage because I had to survive. I had to create carnage to survive,
yeah.
And that was really my reality. But I look back now and know that the Mongrel Mob were my spiritual initiators to do what I do today. So thanks, Mum and Dad, for not supporting me. Everything was imperfection. Part of what I keynote about is that you're never given anything that you can't handle. When you've gone beyond the comprehension of human terror and come back of your own accord, you kind of learn a few things that weren't.
Uh-oh. I think we lost Sally. Oh, my goodness. Well, I hope she calls back. But her story, she goes on to with such a tragic story, but she became a leadership and coming from New Zealand, we know that some of the lines here, but she did get disconnected, and we're going to make sure we get her back on the line. I'm sure she'll call back in immediately. But today we're going to talk about leadership. She's going to go into more about this evolution of what she did. I love that she's using the word evolve, because it takes her and brings what her past history and story, all that she was talking about, and it brings her full circle up into, and we have her back now. I was filling in the gap there, but
thank you, Don. Sorry about that.
No problem. And I was explaining, you're calling all the way from New Zealand, and yeah, with technology, even though we think it's the greatest and latest thing, sometimes things do happen, and it might happen a few more times during the show, but we're going to keep on persevering. And I also want to tell our listeners how much I appreciate you being on the show today, because it's 3 o'clock in the morning where you are. And, I truly appreciate you. I'm sure you set the alarm and got up to come on the show, but I've always felt your story was just fascinating, even when we met at that simple 3-day training. I mean, that exposure to you literally changed my life. So let's sort of transition into the topic today of leadership. And I know one of the things you want to talk about are what are the 2 most impactful issues facing leaders today that you feel leaders need to focus on. Let's get right into talking about leadership.
Great. So I want to elevate
I know
the
it's early.
I want to elevate the conversation beyond leadership, because we've got 7 billion people on the planet, and the one synonymous thing that comes with the territory of leadership is that we're all human. So there's just certain things that come with the human territory. So the 2 things that I really want to focus on, yes, has a huge impact on leadership, which I believe all of the education I've developed is a function of what I term awareness-based training. And most people, even if they are highly trained and they've done every traditional leadership program on the planet and they've done every personal development program on the planet, the sad thing is that they're still dissatisfied. They haven't reached the level of transformation that they have wanted, nor have they known how to sustain it. So there's 2 things in this conversation. One is addiction. The biggest addiction, I believe, on the planet is dissatisfaction. This isn't it yet. It's when I get the house, the boat, the man, the car, the dog, the something in the future in that place called there. So when I ask a client, how are you going? They go, I'm getting there. I go, where is that place called there? There's only the now moment, and we're hardly ever here. I've had the privilege of coaching millionaires and billionaires, and they have perceivably everything, and they're still dissatisfied. Everybody who thinks that if they got all of that, they too then would be satisfied. The listeners on the call today, I've been an entrepreneur for 14 years. There's many trials and tribulations that you come up against, when you go and follow your bliss and give back and, be a servant to what it is you're being called to do. However, the ability to be able to sustain your state regardless of what's thrown at you, so the likes of equanimous leadership. Equanimity is my favorite word. Also my favorite way of living life. To lead an equanimous life is that ability to be able to remain undisturbed, to be the observer without reaction. It's a bit Buddhist, a bit Zen, but it works in the context of leadership. So in the context of addicted to dissatisfaction, I've partnered with many people to achieve everything that they wanted to achieve, and still yet this undercurrent of dissatisfaction is evident. So why is that? I have ascertained that we have what I term a default identity. So moment by moment by moment, you're either in an empowered state or a disempowered state. And we have a tendency to default to the disempowered state. So if you do not understand the nuances of your own individual default identity, then you're in an organization where there's fellow human beings in that organization. They too have this default identity. You've got a collective undercurrent within the organization and a collective default within your culture that is hardly ever recognized. And so commitment equals results. Wherever the results are currently being produced in your life is a function of your current commitment. Now that can land like a cup of cold sick, like an ouch. What do you mean I'm committed to this dysfunction? Well, let's check it out. Want versus commitment. If there was 2 tennis courts a tennis court called want and a tennis court called committed. Most people are trying to get the results from the tennis court called committed from the tennis court called want. I want to change. I want to be able to have an empowered culture. I want to be able to change my people. I want to, whatever it is. That's a very different identity to operate out of versus somebody who's actually committed to it. So, one of the analogies I use is around, be it weight loss and or finance. I'll have a group of people in front of me and I'll say to them, how many of you have been trying to lose weight the last 2, 5, or 10 years? Hands up. How many of you have been trying to transform your financial status 2, 5, or 10 years? And you probably live in a conversation that goes along the lines of, I hate this, I get frustrated by this, I don't like this. Well, I'm here to tell you, you love it. You love being fat. You love your finances being in the state that they're in, because that's where the results are being produced. Commitment equals results. Love the statement. Very simplistic, but very powerful, because most people are disassociated. 7 billion people on the planet. We're disassociated from the cost of where we operate, which segues nicely into my second point, which is tolerations. When you distinguish for somebody, especially in leadership, what it is that they're tolerating both personally and professionally, coaches can distinguish, what it is that you want, and, kind of like there's more to coaching than project management. This is where you are today. This is where you'd like to be. There's more to coaching than that. What's the undercurrent that you're operating over the top of? If you can't afford to pay your staff, if you're not earning what you wish to be earning, that's a good one in the entrepreneurial world. The level of toleration is massive, and most people can rattle off the costs of something that's not working, but if they were present to the cost, they'd move in a freaking heartbeat. So most people don't realize how disassociated they are from what they tolerate. And so part of what I teach people, or leaders, is what would your life look like if you didn't tolerate anything that wasn't working? And obviously I have a huge commitment to, I believe that anybody attracted to this education is here to play a big legacy on the planet. And that part of what I say to most of my audience is that, here's the deal, I'm not actually interested in your transformation, to which they look at you a bit weird. I'm more interested in the lives that you get to transform when you get out of the way. And so I believe there's a sense of urgency for me to reach the people, for those that have a humanitarian message to make the difference, to evolve beyond their current default level of identity, to be able to make a difference on the planet to the degree that the planet deserves. And obviously my passion of changing the way the existing schooling system works, because if we don't change the fundamental basis of the schooling system globally, we are not evolving as a human race.
I think that's a very important fact or point that you're making, because you talked about tolerance and how we actually were taught to be, satisfied or accept our state versus, looking to say, okay, I might not be happy, but I just have to deal with it. Instead of saying, but what makes you happy? Why don't you go and make that transition to the happy place versus, oh, this is what has the life that's been dealt to me. I just better learn how to tolerate it versus learn how to change it. And I think that's what sort of hit me in what you're saying here, that we get into that state of acceptance versus how can I go to the state that I really need to be in.
How is always the best now to a possibility.
Yeah.
The first thing people go into when any form of change and transition is evident is, well, how do I do that? How do I do that? How do I do that? Well, how convenient. You then not only are stuck in the how, you're also stuck in confusion. Confusion also is the biggest, what I term, relinquishment bucket for a human being. How convenient you're confused, you don't have to be responsible. So calling somebody to account to get present to the cost of what they're tolerating can be quite a wake-up call, especially the age of the individual. When you have younger leaders in front of you, I often use the older ones as an example. Do you honestly want to end up like us? You can learn this stuff at an earlier stage, because you've got, 50, 60, 70-year-olds in the room versus something 20 to 30. It's always an intriguing conversation to have.
Absolutely. So, we're talking about transformation, but a key thing that you say is the sustainability of that transformation. So what is sustainable transformation, and why should any of us be interested in it?
Fabulous. So my background is belief, behavioural, cultural change at a large level. So my last assignment corporately 14 years ago was implementing, as part of a global transformational process across two countries, Netherlands, Boston, and New York. I was in New York on September the 10th, not realising what was going to happen on September the 11th. We had our offices 5 blocks from ground zero. Millions of dollars would be spent on these change programs that I would implement, but I knew they'd never get a return on the investment 3 to 5 years after I walked out the door. So I felt like a bit of a prostitute in the system as a consultant because there was no consciousness on behalf of the consultant to just take the money, knowing that there wasn't a sustainable solution. So, and obviously as a program director, I specialize in project portfolio and program directorship at a large level. Loved what I did corporately, but I actually cared about the culture changing and their ability to be able to change it post my involvement. So I became fascinated about this elusive thing called sustainability. You know, the money that's expended on coaches, on workshops, on trainings, on external mediums, and not undermining the commitment on behalf of the company to do all of that, but there's, again, a toleration for not getting the ROI that they deserve back to the business.
Mm-hmm.
I'd also been a course junkie for 30 years, name a book, a CD, a course. I've read it, listened to it, and been to it, always struggling to sustain the change because I was looking outside of myself for the answers. So the whole birthing place of my fascination, both personally and professionally, if you've got to invest money into change, let's make sure it's sustainable. So if you break down the word sustainability, we have the ability to sustain anything once we're aware. And if we are to agree off the back of the conversation that we're having that most people fundamentally as human live a disassociated life, thinking that their happiness lies in a future-based location, it doesn't take a rocket scientist as to why, even in the face of a high level of investment, people still haven't experienced the level of transformation that they've wanted, nor have they known how to sustain it. So over a 3-year period, when I first went out of mine, I developed all our own education, focusing on what is the missing element within traditional leadership training and or personal development training. Because in some cases, especially within those that are the largest education curriculums on the planet, their philosophy is to ensure that you keep coming back. They don't want.
Mm-hmm.
Now, can you imagine that if this education was in Weight Watchers, for example, I mean, it's $1 trillion industry, the well-being market. They do not want to find a sustainable solution to weight loss because then it would, infiltrate the system. I mean, I wrote a chapter in my first book, People Living Life Beyond the Edge, that I don't believe in depression. I partnered with people with depression in a sustainable way. If we bring a education curriculum to market that is non-drug related, it would actually impact the pharmaceutical industry. I feel like a bit of a Mike Moore with what I've created. I'm very clear what I have, and obviously our intention is to be able to have this sustainability toolkit in the hands of those who are able to enhance the human condition: social workers, mental health workers, entrepreneurs, C-suite, business owners. But obviously there's a timing of being able to get this particular education into the hands of those that can make the difference, which is the purpose of the Co-Creative Age, the next book that I'm writing. So sustainable transformation sometimes can be confused with the whole corporate responsibility piece. When we're talking about sustainability, we're talking about you as the individual. I'm currently coaching a professor in Monash University, and she came to one of our retreats, and a colleague of her also went and studied at Harvard at the same time, and they compared notes, and it was very intriguing, the feedback. There were 36 people in his course in Harvard, and then she spoke about her experience with this particular professor. At the end of the conversation, he said, "You're a very brave person, because I could hide out at Harvard in 35 people, but given we only take 10 people, I don't think that I could look at myself to that degree. I don't think I could handle looking at who I am as a human being within my leadership capability. So I take my hat off to you." So what's my point with that? If you're still breathing as a leader, it's your responsibility to stay the student, and evolution doesn't die until you do. So you have a responsibility, I believe, as a leader, to continue to evolve to your highest potential, and that paying it forward, I believe, is your ultimate responsibility on this planet, to reach that level of self-actualization, to be able to then pay forward what it is that you've learnt, which is pretty much I've been called to this vocation and believe that everything is imperfection for why I'm doing what I'm doing, because I wouldn't have learnt what I've learnt, I wouldn't be imparting what I'm imparting. And it takes something, to transcend your own identity as you know it, to then be able to passionately be able to give back what you've learned, because I care and I believe that there is a sense of urgency that people are, from be it an entrepreneurial perspective, a corporate perspective, they are ready to understand why have I not been able to individually transform to the degree that I've liked, and why have I not been able to sustain it. And the key component to that is the area that we specialize in.
Yeah, you're right. And I'm always here to point out points that really resonate with me. One thing that I really believe in is being an intentional leader. And it's not that you put your mind to say, I want to be the leader, but it's you take your intentions of leadership, and it's living that day, and you've spoken earlier about you have to live in the present. We're here now. We have to look at what we're doing now. And a part of that intentional leadership is sharing your skills, knowledge, expertise to the next generation right now. And what that does is you're building and not leaving a legacy, but you're building a legacy in the here and now. And so when you talk about different points, it just brought that to mind, and how it has impacted how I work, how I go about sharing the information and the skills and the knowledge of what I'm doing. We're going to talk, okay, so we talked about sustainable transformation and what it should be, but who is Evolve Leadership, or what is Evolve Leadership, and what does it stand for?
So we're the first global leadership service provider, leadership development service provider, focusing on this whole area of sustainable transformation. So most people who are attracted to this education are leaders of high positions, C-suite, business owners, entrepreneurs, thought leaders. They have been there and done that. The analogy I use is the three-legged stool. First leg of the stool is traditional leadership, the hard skills, the left brain. Most leaders are unconsciously competent in that area. So what does unconsciously competent mean? When you're 15, 16 years of age and you're driving a car, it's a bit clunky. So you're unconsciously incompetent. You get into your car now, don't even think about it, you're unconsciously competent. So they have huge proficiency in that particular leg of the stool. Second leg of the stool would be subject matter expertise. Most leaders are unconsciously competent within the area within which they specialize. But the third leg of the stool, which is the right brain, the soft skills, the mindset, the behavioral change, normally fits into the camp of when I've got the time, when we've got the budget, which is hardly ever, is the most critical leg of the stool as far as sustainability is concerned. So I can pretty easily get a leader present to the cost of where their organization is operating. Me coming from a cultural change background, there's normally three categories. They're either in the category of being too terrified of implementing cultural change, given what it takes. They're either in the process of implementing cultural change and it's not working, or they're at the end of the equation having spent millions of dollars and it's still not reaping the reward. So that's a high majority of organizations out there. And so part of our role, I believe, at Evolve Leadership is to impart the education that has been developed, that is tried and proven. We have, as I said before, a sense of urgency to be able to have this education in the hands of those who are committed to becoming conscious. I talk it conscious organizations who, when you talk about philanthropy, I think there's a lot of looking good philanthropy going on. This is genuine philanthropy, specifically in the corporate world. I'll be brave enough to say that. And so, to me, when you're looking at when is the pain going to get that bad that you actually look for a different solution? And obviously, when you're pioneering something new, the first chapter of my new book is called "The Crazy Ones." I love that quote by John Eliot. History shows us that people who end up changing the world, the great political, social, scientific, technological, artistic, even sports revolutionaries, are always nuts, and until they're right, and then they're geniuses, right? So the journey of following your bliss, I'd highly recommend those listening on the radio show today to watch a movie called Finding Joe, which follows the 9 steps of transformation of Joseph Campbell. It's just fantastic. findingjoemovie.com. It is a great adaptation of what it takes to evolve to your highest potential as a human being on the planet. And there's 3 categories for that. People who know that there is a calling and deny the call. Those that are in the middle of their call, they've been brave enough to follow it, and in that process there's a lot of trials and tribulations that come up that deter them from the fulfillment. And then there's those that have tipped. If the likes of Thomas Edison, Walt Disney, and J.K. Rowling and so forth hadn't persevered through a lot of personal sacrifice, they would not have achieved what they achieved, with reference to what they were being called to do in this lifetime. So,
it's also about sticking to it, too.
That's exactly right. Because
a lot of us tend to give up too soon.
Yeah, and that's where this whole default identity comes from. Normally we can go and find enough evidence to sink a ship to get off the court. And, I talk to people about playing Wimbledon. The court analogy I love, because the only purpose of being on the court is to be in action, to forward the game to win it. And there's many different levels of where people are playing. I talk about there's some people in the car park, some people in the grandstands in the stadium, thinking about, talking about. And then there's 3 levels of court. There's the country-style court, which is, yes, it's a court, but, it's holy, it's uneven. Then you've got the more national level of tennis game, which obviously requires a different type of skill set. And then there's Wimbledon. So how do you play at a 10 every day, the best of your ability, knowing how to sustain that regardless of circumstance? Because when people are playing Wimbledon and the ball doesn't go their way in front of millions of people, they don't get off the court. And so confrontation, resistance, and uncomfortability as a transformation agent are critical elements to true transformation. Most human beings get off the court when they're confronted, resistant, and uncomfortable. There isn't enough focus or training given to leaders on if you're a change agent, you need to go looking to be confronted. You need to go looking to be resistant. You need to go looking, because that is where the transformation lies, in the unknown realm. And human beings, sadly, we were born connected, born intuitive, born fearless. That was your birthright. So when I talk about fearless practicing, fearless leadership, most leaders wouldn't acknowledge the degree to which they're fearful, but it comes from human territory. So when you get a leader present to the degree to which they are disconnected from their own source, so I don't care what you call it, higher power, universal force, collective consciousness, God. When I'm facilitating this conversation at CEO level, go to a leader, not that they have a vacuum, but have you ever tried to vacuum when you haven't plugged it in and turned it on? It's a bit tricky. So you're actually doing leadership, tolerating stress, overwhelm, frustration. Doing leadership is that realm, because who you are in your human form is limited. Who you are in your co-creative form is limitless. So being able to evolve leaders to a level, which is part of what the Evolve Leadership Curriculum is about, I'm not interested in you going out and your vision from the humanistic form. I'm interested in you evolving to access. You are a creative being. You have the ability to tap into the co-creative realm to be able to not only accomplish far more by doing less, but, when you're operating from the state of being, life is very different because you're able to sustain your state. You're able to leverage the co-creative energetic realm. You are able to, there's a big difference between knowing that you're powerful versus owning your presence. That when you are so grounded in your co-creative ability, you're a pretty formidable force on the planet.
Absolutely. And you keep bringing up all these points that keep talking, that bring things to mind, that the whole point of living in fear, and it's those crazy people that actually are the innovators and the ones that are then thought to be genius. And I keep telling a lot of the people I work with that the comfort zone is, you're just being a coward. You're staying in your comfort zone. It's when you step out of that comfort zone and really look to expand, to grow, to evolve, that's when things really happen. We're going to come back and continue this conversation on leadership and leadership advance right after a couple commercial breaks.
Support for the Philanthropreneur Foundation provided by WarriorDesign.net, providing services including graphic design, innovative flyers, responsive websites, video editing, and more. offering next-day services at an affordable rate. For more information, visit us online at warriordesign.net.
Warriordesign.net.
Today's Philantrepreneur Show tip.
As usual, I always bring a tip during each show. So continuing the topic of leadership, what are leadership traits? I personally don't believe there are one set of traits that define being a dynamic leader. The situation and conditions help define what traits are most needed at that time. However, there is one condition that almost always defines the difference between failure and success, and that is the trait of shutting out the advice of others, becoming uncoachable, unteachable. When an entrepreneur stops being willing to be coached, their days are numbered, and that's just plain and simple.
The Philantrepreneur Journal, a quarterly digital publication reaching over 600,000 entrepreneurs and nonprofits. Get targeted exposure to reach your ideal customer with our unique Ads for a Cause, where 50% of the fee goes to support our nonprofit training and services programs. Together, we can make a difference, create impact, and build capacity. Visit thephilantrepreneur.com, Marketing Ads tab for all the details. Mention this show and get a 10% discount.
Okay, welcome back as we continue our conversation with Sally Anderson, founder and director of Evolved Leadership, and she is joining us all the way from New Zealand, quite early in the morning over there. So let's get back into our conversation. We talked a lot about just leadership and evolving, sustainability, transformation, but I'm extremely excited because you're going to be coming to the U.S. On tour, and you're going to be coming right here to Las Vegas in June, and that's, everybody really needs to get excited about that. So let's talk about what is different about the Evolved 3-day leadership advance, and that's the reason you're coming here. Explain that to us.
So in the military, an advance is where you advance forward, a retreat is where you retreat back. So over the last 7 years, I have developed a 3-day leadership program that used to be termed a retreat, taking leaders on a 3-day intensive. We only take 10 people. But I changed the terminology from retreat to advance because we were evolving the curriculum. I'm in the curriculum as much as the participant. I would never ask somebody to do something I'm unwilling to do myself. So most people who are attracted to this education are highly trained. They have been there, done that in the traditional leadership realm. They've been there, done that in the personal development realm. They've done the Anthony Robbins, the avatars, the landmarks, and so forth. But for whatever reason, they haven't experienced the level of transformation that they wanted, nor have known how to sustain it. So I believe it's one of the most infiltrative leadership courses on the planet. We only take 10 people per program. The difficulty is that part of the course commitment is that you do not share what happens on the program as a course commitment. I believe the program is as powerful as it is because of that commitment. People of that caliber want privacy and confidentiality, especially in a group context. They're dealing with some pretty highly confidential information in the roles that they hold, and so it's a very private experience. The ability to be able to circumvent 10, 20, 30 years of preconditioning, depending on the age of the leader in the room, that you can actually do that within a 3-day period and learn how to sustain it is what's wonderful about the program. We look at every aspect of your default.
Oop. Oh, we lost her again, but I'm sure she'll call back in. Once again, as I said, Sally's calling from New Zealand. But just to, she's going to come back on and explain more about the 3-day leadership advance. She'll be at a couple locations here in the U.S. Like I said, she will be in the Las Vegas area, and it's quite a unique experience. And in listening to her on the show today, I'm sure you're seeing how her background and skills really brings a unique perspective. And we have her back on the line, and we will continue and let her continue with her explanation. Go ahead, Sally. I'm sorry.
Sorry about that, Victoria. Wonders of modern technology. Yeah, so we look at...
But hey, I'm just great excited that you are able to call me from New Zealand. And so, a few dropped calls during the show, I'll deal with that. But, okay, you were... hey, I'm taking that as a perk that, we've got the line so hot that it has to take a break.
Good on you.
Okay,
like we were talking
before
about the comfort zone. And, the irony of that comfort zone is so absolutely uncomfortable, right? Which speaks to the thing I was talking about before about disassociation. I talk about human static. There's 4 key things that disempower a human being, only 4. Fear, inner critic, issues, problems, challenges, and confusion. Now, when you're driving a car and you're listening to the radio, you don't stay on the static channel. You quickly try and tune into the music. Now, if you don't know what your individual music is, let alone the music of your organization, it's hard to be in harmony. And so moment by moment by moment, when a human being gets out of bed in the morning, they are impacted by fear, inner critic, issues, problems, challenges, and confusion. That I call human static, because they're only ever projections from a disconnected state. You're either out in the future creating a world that's not even here yet, or dragging in something from the past. So training leaders that there is only the now moment. There's a lot of cliche statements out there about living in the now. How many books do we need to read in the motivational space that say, be careful what you think, your thoughts create your reality? There is a high-level lack of discipline because there's a lack of awareness-based training skills taught at the leadership level around being aware that, the impact that your state has, because a fish stinks from the head down, part of the reason why we chose to rebrand and focus solely on high-level leadership was that, I was tired of going into organizations where they would say, can you just come in and fix my people? I go, no, I'd actually like to hang out and actually reorient your mindset, and out of you changing, it will infiltrate down towards the organization. So really infiltratively looking at the individual leader as who are you as a human being, who are you in your leadership capability, capacity, what truly are you doing on the planet, and to what degree are you constrained to achieve the dimension of what you can achieve. And I believe you will not be able to achieve it to the magnitude that you want to, nor know how to sustain it, unless you integrally understand this default identity that I talk about. I believe it's the key missing and the reason why things don't stick with reference to any form of transformative change within the human psyche. So it's over a 3-day period. It is normally held in a experiential location. We would never hold it in a sterile CBD hotel. Day 1's all about breakthroughs. So my area of speciality is live coaching. So anything at any place, anytime, anywhere, on anything, personally or professionally, to be able to witness that live coaching live in a small, intimate group. Intimate, I talk about intimate leadership, intimacy, into me you see, beyond the facade of looking good, because there's a tendency as leaders to be in control. One of the most popular blogs I wrote recently was how to be out of control as a leader. Not out of control, do-dally, out of control as in somebody who trusts the unknown realm implicitly as much as they trust the known realm, which takes something to evolve to achieve that level of implicit trust. Day 2 is all about breakthroughs. 100% of every single feedback form in 7 years of leading have stated that day 2 is the most cathartic day. The day.
Oh, are you still there? Yep. Oh, we've lost her again. But okay, so when she comes back, but she'll talk more about the process, the days, and what she'll get from each day. We'll give her just a few seconds because I really want to make sure she gets all 3 days in there. While we're waiting for her to get back online, I just want you to remember that the Philantrepreneur Foundation builds capacity through education and professional service. And a lot of what Sally has been talking about is building a culture. And the Philantrepreneur Foundation also likes to build a culture of learning. We have Sally back on the line, and I'll let you continue with what you're going to get from day 2, where you were talking about the 3-day leadership advance. Go ahead, Sally.
So on day 2, we term it core beliefs. There is a belief at the core of you that you're not even aware of that's running your life, that's sabotaging the ability to achieve what you want. every human being on the planet fundamentally at their base has some undercurrent of I'm not good enough and or some undercurrent of, which is the formation of the whole inner critic conversation. It amazes me that in high-level traditional leadership training, they do not teach you how to master your inner critic. Considering, I've got a 9-year-old child in front of me and they have a heinous inner critic, the internal dialogue that beats the crap out of you, versus a client who's 49 years of age who's had 40 years of internal destructive dialogue. Nobody talks about it. The inner critic annihilates human potential. I want mastery of the inner critic in the schooling system. So, I can work with a CEO and they'll say to me, Sally, I don't think I've got one of these things called an inner critic that you're talking about. I go, when you start working with me, your inner critic's going to go right off, because you're going to get very present to understanding the nuances of your default behavior. I talk about power-based cultures versus default-based cultures, because the makeup of who's in your organization are a makeup of human beings. There's a lack of focus in understanding the nuances of what comes with the human territory. If somebody is disempowered, they're in their default. They trigger somebody else, they're disempowered, and it's a default-based interaction, rife within all personal relationships, let alone within the workforce. So we have default-based cultures out there as the norm. What we're standing for is power-based cultures, where you are completely aware of your behavior, you take responsibility for your behavior, you know how to change your behavior, and you know how to sustain it. Now, when that's happening at a board level or at a senior management level, obviously when you're walking the talk to that degree, obviously that can infiltrate down throughout the organization.
Absolutely, create a culture.
Yeah. So day 2 looks at the core of what's been running that you haven't even been aware of, which is what is so cathartic about the day. And day 3 is all about love. Yes, love in the context of business seems to be there seems to be so much resistance, and yet fear seems to be the addiction, and there's a fine line between fear and love. Fear is when you're disconnected, love is when you're connected. So why would not a key strategy within your business or within the way that you operate, why is there an aversion to talking about love in the business context? So it's a whole day focused on communication, on extraordinary relationships. What is the point of being in a relationship unless...
Absolutely. Okay, it dropped again. We're going to get her back one more time, and then we're going to let her really tell you how, you can connect and attend the Evolved Leadership. It's called the Evolved 3-Day Leadership Advance. It will be in the U.S. coming up. I know it's here June 17th through 19th, but she will be on, and we will get her last few moments of telling you about this great training that leaders need to attend. Okay, Sally, we're going to go right into tell our listeners how they can attend or find out if this is the best place that they should do with the Evolved Leadership 3-Day Leadership Advance, especially here in Las Vegas. I'd like to see them come here.
So on the 17th to the 19th of June is our intention. We only take 10 leaders on that particular advance. We're excited about the potential of being able to have this education available to leaders who resonate with this particular message. Our website is www.evolvedleadership.com.au, and what we're doing at the moment is offering a 30-minute to 1-hour consultation privately with me that if people on the call resonate with the message and they're wanting to dive deeper into the conversation, see how it could fit with either the, in your case, the philanthropic cause that they're standing for, or the who they are within a leader within the cause that they're standing for, who they are as an entrepreneur, or any C-suite executives, anybody who's interested in being able to evolve to the highest potential and totally respect the existing level of leadership ability. So in no way, shape, or form are we wanting to challenge status quo. What we are wanting to do is that there is another way. And to me, the sustainability message is one that is resonating with a lot of leaders because of the frustration that they've found in expending a high level of investment into either their personal or professional development realm but have, for whatever reason, not achieved the results that they're wanting. So for those that are interested, www.evolveleadership.com.au, and all of the information about the advances is on that particular site. And yeah, more than happy to privately talk to anybody that the message resonates with.
Okay, and can they sign up for that 30-minute consultation on that site too? They'll find something there for that?
That they can.
Okay, so you will find all of the information about the 3-day Leadership Advance presented by Sally Anderson, the founder and director of Evolve Leadership. It has truly, truly been my pleasure to have you on the show today. They can also find a 2-page spread on the entire 3-day Leadership Advance, especially here in Las Vegas, in the Philantrepreneur Journal. It is right the second and third page of the journal. So if you haven't signed up or you want to look at the journal, just go to our site, or you can find it on our Facebook page, but you can find it on JUMAG, the Philantrepreneur. But you need to look at that resource also to find out more about the 3-day Leadership Advance presented by Sally Anderson. Sally, thank you so much for coming on the show today. Truly, you have been an inspiration in my life. You really gave me the kickstart to publish my first book, but not only that, to understand that I had a lot to offer beside what I had done in my previous career. And so, once again, as I've always told you, I thank you for making me see some of the things that I had buried within me. Thank you for coming on the show.
It's been an absolute privilege, and you continue to inspire me. On the back of my business card for many years, I had it is a profound privilege to be in the presence of another human being. It's been a complete privilege to be talking with you, Victoria.
Okay, thank you. Have a great day, and I'm sure we'll be talking soon. Okay.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye. This will be a life-changing experience, so I hope my listeners seriously consider taking advantage of this unique and rare opportunity. Once again, go to www.evolveleadership.com. I think it's New Zealand, NZ, but you can find it also on the show's website for this Blog Talk show. Building capacity through education and professional services, that is our goal here at the Philantrepreneur Foundation. Help us meet the needs of not one, but hundreds of organizations, a vital asset in every community. For just pennies a day, join our 5 and 10 campaign. Make a tax-deductible donation today. Learn more about all of our opportunities by visiting http://philanthropreneurfoundation.org. Look for support on our sponsor tab, or contact me directly at vboyd@pcclv.com. Join us for our next show when we welcome another great guest with valuable information. And in the meantime, we ask, are you a philantrepreneur?
Thank you for tuning in to the Philantrepreneur Radio Show, hosted by Dr. Victoria Boyd. Get involved. Follow us on Facebook and other social media outlets. If you wish to share comments or suggestions or appear as a guest on our show, visit www.thephilantrepreneur.com. Contact Victoria Boyd. Email her at theboyd@thephilantrepreneur.com. The Philantrepreneur Radio Show is a production of and sponsored by the Philantrepreneur Foundation, a 501c3 tax-deductible organization.